It seems to me that one of the things you are saying is that the President and the Minister had given indications that they wished that you should not pursue the investigation. Now, as far as the Minister is concerned, I'm clear that that's what you have said. I'm not sure that in your response to some of my questions, that's what you said about the President, but I may have misunderstood. I just want to make sure I'm not confused about what you say. The paragraph, as I understand it, includes the President in saying he had given clear indications that he did not wish the investigation to be pursued. Is that what you are saying? Or is there an error with that?
Thanks, Chair. I think it would be fair of me to say, now that we are posing this question, this line in relation to the President, former President, might not apply. But also the word clear indication, even on the part of the Minister, might be problematic.
Yes, you might want to say indications without saying clear.
Yes, you can say indications, but not clear, because as I was saying, I still meant to recall him saying, stop this. But there were indications in his interaction with us on that report. He wants us to stop.
Yes.
I don't know whether I'm answering you.
No, you are. So if that is the position, it might be necessary in a supplementary affidavit to...
Yes. You would also have to clarify your statement in paragraph 68 about the body language and demeanor of the former president. But that's a clarificatory affidavit that you could give some thought to, because you did say that the former president was deliberately silent as well in your evidence.
Yes, I agree also on that one, yes.
All right.
Okay, I just want to follow that paragraph 68. Is your position that there was anything in the body language and demeanor of the former president in that meeting that suggested to you whether he did not want you to continue with the investigation? Was there anything in his body language and demeanor that made you or makes you think along those lines or not?
Except to say that his muteness, his quiet, it's unlike him when you interact. He smiles, he laughs, and he would joke, but he was just stern on this. I think this is what I wanted to convey by demeanor and body language. It was unlike him. Now, as to whether it would be acceptable or correct, therefore, to say it made it abundantly clear to us.
Yeah, so maybe to put it differently, are you able to say as you sit there that his body language and demeanor gave you an indication that he did not want the investigation to be pursued?
Without using precise words, that would be correct.
Yeah.
But the impression when I looked at his body language,
yes,
you know,
yes,
it was that of not a happy
yes,
person in relation to what we were discussing with him.
Yes. Okay.
Now I don't know. The drafters, I'm sure, would...
No, I understand. You say that's the impression you got, but you say you can't put it higher than that.
No, I can't.
Yes, but with the minister, it's a different story.
No, we know that with the minister, it's a different one.
Yes. Okay, all right.
What is clear from your evidence, however, is the statement in paragraph 66 that the former president sought to explain his relationship with the Gupta family?
Yes.
Did you conclude that he was seeking to justify it?
You see, on that one, the way he explained it, the time that he took in explaining this, it was like he's conditioning us, you know, how they helped his son, Uduzani, who, although he had these skills, he couldn't be employed. And I think, not I think, in the commission when he appeared, he raised this issue of that...
yeah, he did, yeah.
He did, quite in detail. That's when he said,
Yes.
I decided that he should go to eThekwini where he will get employment, you know. So, but in relation to this one, he was quite detailed on that one and really serious about it. And I don't know whether
Okay.
Well, that at least is concrete evidence that you have given as to what was actually said at the meeting, rather than inference from body language and the like, and inference from what was not said or what didn't happen thereafter. So let's just go to that evidence in relation to what the President said at the meeting, and then we'll move on. The statements made to you about his relationship with the Gupta family, and I'm trying to find a way of not putting words in your mouth, so bear with me, Ambassador.
Sure.
Did they seek to look at the relationship objectively from an investigative point of view and ask questions about the relationship? Or were they definitive statements about the fact that this was a defensible and justifiable relationship? Do you understand what I'm saying?
That is the former president now.
The former president, yes.
No. He was very clear, and that there was nothing wrong with his relationship with the people.
All right. Let's go on then to paragraph 71. We've dealt with the fact that as far as you're concerned, no further action was taken, certainly in the intelligence structures, in relation to the relationship between the former president and the Gupta family. But you do say in paragraph 71 that had proper action been taken in investigations, there might have been a particular outcome. Would you explain what you're saying, please, in paragraph 71? Because this is dealt with by Ms. Duarte in her statement, but we'll come to that later. You draw a conclusion in paragraph 71. Why do you draw that conclusion?
What I'm saying is that had that investigation, or had the president have listened to that investigation, perhaps it would have helped him if he had stopped his relationships with the Gupta. And I can further go on to say, when you look at it now in retrospect, after that 2011 report, would he have been in the situation that he is in now? Because he's dragged into the mud because of that relationship. I think in essence this is what I'm saying in that paragraph.
Yes, you see, Ambassador, that meeting with the president and that meeting with the minister, and of course, events that may have happened after these meetings, and it may well be that there were events that happened before these meetings. Insofar as the investigation is concerned, may be quite important for the point that you just articulated. If this commission ultimately, if it were to ultimately find that to a certain extent, the relationship that the former president had with the Gupta family is responsible for maybe some of the things that are alleged to have happened in the country. The question of whether people who tried to draw attention to him or other people who might have had influence, like the NEC of the ruling party, to say something is not right here. There must be an intervention. Or in the case of that investigation that Mr. Njenje's branch was conducting, if the investigation had continued, it may, we don't know what outcome it would have reached, but assume that it may have reached the outcome that said, this is danger, this is going to cause problems. It may be that if one looks at it that way, one may say, well, the president should have allowed the investigation to happen and so on. But he is going to say to you, and this is what I want you to address, what if he says to you, but I never interfered with your investigation. You yourself have said, I didn't say stop the investigation. You were the DG, you were all senior officials, you knew your obligations, you knew your job. I didn't say you must stop it. I didn't say anything to discourage you from proceeding. So how do you blame me for the fact that you didn't continue with the investigation? What do you say to that?
Good question, Chair. Again, I'm going to answer that question honestly. Now that you have posed that question to me, I never thought of it that far. I will admit, Advocate, I never thought of it that far. Let me not cloud the question with other events. I think it would be wrong. Let me just respond to it in relation to the investigation. I would have no leg to stand if he responds, if he asks that question.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Pretorius.
On the 18th of March 2016, a memorandum was prepared and ultimately presented to the representatives, as you put it, of the top six. Who prepared the memorandum?
I'm sorry, Mr. Pretorius. It looks like, it appears to me that that topic has been located wrongly, because that's a 2016 matter, and yet later on we must talk about his resignation, which was in 2012.
Well, I don't think it's wrong. It's just not in chronological order.
No, I'm saying it's located in the wrong place, because that happened in 2016, but
Yes.
we must still hear about what happened in 2012 when he left, isn't it?
Well,
In terms of the affidavit, it
Yes.
says at page 23, my resignation as the head of the intelligence services, and this topic is at page 17.
Yes, what he deals with now is a number of particular incidents. And then at the end of his affidavit, he deals with his resignation. If you
I prefer that
to
we-
change
let's
this
finish.
order, I'm happy that that be done.
If it's fine with you, I would
no
prefer
problem,
that
Chair.
we finish that with
Yes.
what happened in
Yes, all I'm saying
the
in
years
defense of
before.
the drafter here is that there's a logic, perhaps not a time sequence. But
Yes.
let's not argue that, Chair.
Yes.
Go to paragraph 95, page 23. In this section of your statement, you talk about your resignation as the head of the intelligence services. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why? Well, and secondly, MM2A is a document authored by yourself dated November 2011, addressed to the former president. Do you see that?
Yes.
That is not in its terms a letter of resignation. It is merely an address to the former president setting out a number of issues that you required or wanted to be addressed. And you said at the end of that letter, please address these within 14 days. Do you recall that?
Just come again,
All right.
Advocate.
Go to page 113.8, please. This is what you term a resignation letter, but it's not actually a letter announcing your resignation. It's a letter addressed to the former president, setting out a number of concerns you have in relation to state security and its structures.
Yes.
Are you at page 113?
Yes, I'm there.
If you go to page 113.8, the end of the letter, there's your signature.
Yes.
The conclusion of this letter is not a statement saying you're going to resign. It's a statement which reads, Mr. President, some of the issues raised herein might not be new to you because I've raised them with you personally. I humbly request that within a reasonable time of 14 days of receipt of this document, you respond on how you wish to address them. You see that?
Yes.
So, this letter, did it precede your resignation?
Yes, it preceded my resignation because my resignation came into effect on the 28th of January 2012,
Okay.
when I turned 60.
Okay, so was it the sequence of events that you raised certain concerns with the former president? They are set out in this letter. They're organizational concerns in the main, and the manner in which the intelligence service is organized and run. I'm not sure that we need to go through them all. It's a matter of record there. But what gave rise to your resignation in January 2012?
It's the situation that we found ourselves in, as I explained before the short break. amongst other things, Njenje, by the time I wrote this letter, Njenje had already left, right? And there was this whole flurry of reports, which some of them, one wouldn't know whether was this information deliberately leaked from inside. For example, I made the example earlier on the arrangement that we had with the minister for me to take this long leave in December during holiday, which we agreed on, that appeared in the city press, you know, because it was between the two of us who knew about that arrangement. Okay, might be that somebody, he discussed it with somebody else within his office, somebody else leaked it, but it's not up to me to say that. But the point is, when I read that city press article, there are others in this, in some of these paper clippings, but at that time, it was already clear that, as I indicated, advocate, that the relationships were broken.
Right. But you go to paragraph 96, and there you set it out reasonably clearly. You refer to one particular incident that disturbed you.
Paragraph 96 of my statement.
Yes, page 23. And you refer to a general course of events that influenced your decision.
Yes. Can I read it?
Please do.
One of the reasons for the breakdown in our relationship with Minister Cwele arose after I took the minister to task about his abuse of the resources of the SSA to provide protection services for his wife when attending court on charges that she had been involved in drug smuggling. Soon after this, Minister Cwele began undermining my role and duties as head of the intelligence service. He gave direct instructions to members below me and excluded me from properly performing my duties under my performance agreement. This is set out fully in my letter of resignation, but again, we have agreed on the letter which is addressed to the former president, annexed here too as MM2A.
Right. Now, there are a number of annexes to that letter, most of which are classified in one form or another. Some of them have been declassified, but they deal with performance agreements and the like. And unless you wish to refer to them, it's not necessary from our point of view that you deal with them. They deal with performance matters. And the point about your evidence in relation to what concerns the legal team is that there was a breakdown in the relationship.
I agree with that.
Mr. Pretorius, you'll have to raise your voice a bit. It was going down.
Yes, I apologize.
Yeah. But let me say this. You see, the investigation that you conducted, or that was conducted under Mr. Njenje, that we have talked about, and other matters that you may be saying drove you to resign or leave the intelligence are quite important if the idea is to say, here was a very important investigation that we had good grounds to pursue, we wanted to pursue, and had we been allowed to pursue, certain things might not have happened. So it becomes important to articulate quite clearly what those things are. You remember earlier on in your evidence, you talked about constructive dismissal, and I gave an explanation on my own understanding of what that is. So if there is any way of saying it's the minister's conduct in this and that that brought about the decision to stop the investigation or the decision to leave the service, or is the president's conduct in this and that, all of that must be articulated quite clearly so that also the basis for saying so can be looked at properly. So I'm just saying that although it's been a long day, that's quite important that it be articulated, these things be articulated properly, if that is the position.
Let's put it this way, if I may. What is the necessary content of a relationship between a DG, as you were, and the minister? Is it necessary for that to be a good, supportive relationship for it to work?
It's absolutely critical and absolutely important. If you read those annex charges and the reason why I put those performance agreements basically, it's a contract between me and the minister in relation to my performance. That's number one. And when you read all of them, they were signed by both of us, the minister and... For example, let me give the first one. One of my first KPAs, key performance area, was to marshal the integration of these two services. We agreed on that one. Now, then you would see that there are certain things that I needed to do, and there are certain things that the minister needed to do. One of them is the minister will create a conducive environment within the agency for me to fulfill my duties. Right? That is, if you look at that was the significance of me bringing those performance agreements. That's number one. But now, with the performance management system that we have, it's right across government, there are annual performance evaluations, right? Where now we look at, have I done this and this and this KPA, this and this? And I am 100% completely, I can stand on top of the mountain and say, I did what I was tasked to do. And the evidence is in the performance agreements, because the minister signed them off during times of evaluation. He signed them off, all of them. And I think these performance agreements, they should be, 3, 4. But I can share with the commission. I can share with the bitterness that I have with Twede is that up till today, my last performance evaluation, which I passed, it is here. Up till today, Chair, the State Security Agency has not paid me for that. Up till today. But
You say they have not paid you.
They never paid me. I have been discussing this thing even with the present minister. And Faith Khadebe, the former Inspector General, I think it must have been around about 2015, 2016. I lodged the complaint. And she investigated it. And she came with a conclusion that the agency must pay me. Hasn't happened up till today.
How much are we talking about here, if you are able to say?
Look. I cannot quantify it because they do the calculations.
Yeah, okay.
You know?
Yes.
But
whatever amount it is.
Look, between the two of us, it wouldn't be less than 20,000.
Now, am I right to assume that that's payment that you would have got or you would be entitled to if your performance, the assessment of your performance indicated that you had performed very well? Is that correct?
No, you're correct.
So your last performance indicated that you were doing well in your job?
Absolutely.
And the previous ones, did they indicate the same thing?
All of them. And all of them, they were signed between the minister and myself. But what I was trying to stress, that relationship is very, very important between the two DGs. I mean, between the minister and the... This one of the monies is just by way of example, which is one of the things that made this break in relationship.
So are you saying to me that your performance as DG was assessed and on each occasion you were found to have performed very well?
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you are saying.
And there's evidence here. It's not hearsay.
Yes.
There's evidence here.
Yes. Thank you.
And the question arises as to why the relationship between yourself and the minister did not meet the standards of trust and confidence that you said it should meet. Why did the relationship break down? You deal with in paragraph 96.
Yes, I was waiting for the reference to that paragraph to explain one of the problems amongst the multitude of other problems. You will recall, Chair, the case of the wife of the minister, former minister. I think she's serving 15 years now. Yeah, it's 15 years for drug trafficking. Now, during that period of the trial, what had happened? There was a payment, huge payment, I don't recall the amount, that had to be signed by Njenje because it was an expenditure that was done under the domestic intelligence. Basically what had happened, members of the intelligence service using cars of the service were transporting the minister's wife from home to the court. Right? Now, for accountability, the unit that was responsible for that needed a signature for their expenditure. Now, a string of managers in this unit up to Njenje, when those payments came to Njenje, Njenje refused to sign them, says, no. This activity is not an SSA activity. That's when it was brought to my attention by Njenje. So I asked Njenje says, no, I'm not going to, it's irregular, I'm not going to sign it. Now, the minister got to know about that, right? How? Because the service now for the transportation of the wife had to be stopped. Because Njenje instructed the unit there in KZN that, cut this thing. It's irregular. That's when it was brought to the attention of the minister. And we dealt with it, with the minister. And I said to the minister, look, this thing really, to be honest, needs not even come to me. But now that Njenje has reported it, it's under the mandate. This expenditure, in terms of authorization, falls within the authorization of Njenje. It doesn't need to come to me, but I am aware of it. And I agree with Njenje that it's irregular, this activity.
You then?
That is another reason for this break of relationship. Under paragraph 96.
You go on to say that soon after this, that was the incident.
Well, before, after, when you raised this issue with Minister Kwele, what was his reaction? Did he dispute your view that it was irregular expenditure? There was a disagreement between the two of you on the issue, or did he concede that yes, it was? What happened? I want to hear about that.
Let me first say, Minister Kwele is a very funny person.
Just repeat that.
He's a very funny person. And some of us have characterized him as a narcissist. He's got narcissistic tendencies. One, he can be dismissive. He can laugh to the most serious thing. For example, on this one, he says, no, but DG, this is nothing. I don't understand what the problem is here. That was his response. Now, in many occasions, I'm just trying to give you the character of the person. That is one. And secondly, look, quite a number of ministers are not aware of the operational matters in terms of expenditures and the details. And of course, it's understandable because it's far from them. So he might have thought that, but it's up to him to say, he might have thought that activity, there was nothing wrong with it. That was his response, and I said to him, Minister, I am out of this thing because nonetheless, I was just informing you so that you know I am aware of this activity, and Njenje is going to stop it.
So you say he might have thought there was nothing wrong with it, in which case I take it he might have thought that you people were wrong to stop it.
Of course, I agree with you on that, he might. It's only him really who can explain himself.
Yes,
Chair.
okay.
Are you saying that the minister, a minister who uses state resources for private purposes, might have thought it was legitimate? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Well,
It's very generous, if I might say.
well, he might have thought so, but are you quite clear that he would have been wrong to think so, or
Not
what do you
even
say?
wrong.
Yes.
Not even wrong.
Yes.
It would have been as it was. It was irregular. And if he could have been taken to court by the agency, he would even have been found to have agreed on an illegal activity. That's how serious he is. That in terms of the PFMA,
One would have thought that if the DG came to the minister, to a minister, and said, you know, that activity is actually going to land us in trouble. It's going to be irregular expenditure. One would think that the minister would take that issue seriously, and if he thought the DG was wrong, he would ask the question, why do you say this? Show me where it says it's not allowed. Isn't it?
absolutely you are right. But unfortunately, again, we are not living in a vacuum. We are not living in Wonderland. The reality of the matter, these are some of the things at times that happen in government.
I'm going back to the issue of whether he may have legitimately thought there was nothing wrong with this. Because if the DG1, your evidence makes it clear that you told him that Mr. Njanja had already refused to sign. That on its own should have told him, Mr. Njanja views this matter in a serious light. You said you agreed with Mr. Njanja. You were the DG of the department. Now, he ought to have thought, one would expect that he would think, no, this is serious. If I have a different view, let's sit down, let me see, let them show me why it's wrong. But if he doesn't do that, but is dismissive, would that be an indication of somebody who genuinely thinks it's right to do this?
Maybe it's an understatement. I'm downplaying it to say that he might have thought. Because really, I mean, a sober, what do you call it, a reasonable man would not have thought like that, not at all. Let alone at the level of a minister. Wouldn't.
Yes. So you know of no grounds on which he would have thought both you and Mr. Njanja were mistaken about thinking this would be irregular expenditure.
No, you would never have had a leg to stand.
Yes.
No, you would not.
Yes. But you made it clear to him that it was irregular.
It's irregular, and I also told him that it is going to be stopped, or it has been stopped.
Yes.
And Njanja has told me that he's going to stop it, and I agree with him.
Okay.
You go on in paragraph 96 to say what happened after this incident. You've already told the chair that in relation to the Gupta investigation, in all probability he'd received information from one of your subordinates, and that was not in accordance with the protocol of reporting lines. Do you recall that evidence?
Yes.
You say then in paragraph 96, soon after this, and would you carry on from there, please?
or soon after this, Minister Kuele began undermining my role and duties as head of the intelligence service. He gave direct instructions to members below me and excluded, not precluded, excluded me from properly performing my duties under my performance agreement. Then this is set out fully in my letter of resignation addressed to the former president. That is annexure MM2A. This is the annexure that contains the performance agreement.
Yes.
Well, for what it's worth, Mr. Ambassador, appears to me that your choice of precluded may have been the more accurate one.
Is it?
As opposed to excluded. It sounds
Correct.
appropriate to me, because it means prevented you from properly performing your duties.
Oh.
That's what that sentence means.
Okay, Chair, I'm not going to argue with you with that. I was still sharp in 2011. 9 years down the line. Yeah.
Ambassador, apart from examples that you might give of him liaising with your subordinates and undermining your role as head and duties as head of intelligence service, are there any other reasons for the breakdown in the relationship?
If we can continue, I think I continue with this in paragraph 97.
97 deals with declassification and the like. I don't think we need to go there. You can go to paragraph
It deals
98.
with declassification.
Well, if you want to deal with it, you can, but this deals with matters that occurred recently, last year, in relation to classification or declassification of documents. And it can't have been relevant to your resignation at the time.
Oh, okay.
In other words, 97 is an explanation of why the attachments to the letter of resignation in inverted commas
I agree.
are not attached. And I don't think it's relevant to go
No,
there.
it is not.
Documents have been declassified, but not all of them, but only recently.
Yes.
Let's go to paragraph 98, if we could.
Ambassador Sheikh felt very strongly that we should fight to the end against what he perceived as our constructive dismissal by the minister. I felt that the minister had the backing of the former president and told Ambassador Sheikh that we could not win the war, as the former president would ultimately get rid of us. Now, partly we have dealt with some of the issues about the former president, but this paragraph also highlights that we continue discussing our situation. And Ambassador Sheikh was the one who was very, very strong to say, let us continue fighting this thing. Let us not cave in. Because it's intentional, this thing. It is going to lead to a constructive dismissal. But as I said earlier, Chair, we concluded that I said to them that, look, you're not going to win this fight. Tell me of a DG, tell me of a minister who has been reprimanded since 1994, and a DG is said to have been in the right. Doesn't happen in this dispensation, in this post-94. I would still want to know of a case where a president reprimands a minister or sacrifices a minister. No. At the end of the day, the scapegoat would be the officials, either a DG or what. That's why I felt that continuing with what Moore was saying we should do was unsustainable. It actually proved it when he ultimately resigned.
When who asked you to resign?
No, I was not asked to resign.
Sorry, then I misheard you.
I think you might wish to repeat what the last statement you said about it was proved when what? You are following up on the point that you say, on the position that you say you conveyed to
More and Jenja.
yes, that the three of you would not win this war, if you continue to fight.
Yes.
And you said to them, show me a DG who has won against a minister. Show me a minister who has been sacrificed by the president when there is an issue with the DG. Then you made a statement about resigning. I thought that's what I heard as well. You said this was proved when?
I was saying I agree. I resigned. But I was not told to resign. I resigned because I couldn't stand. It was strenuous. It was strenuous, to say the least. And everybody in that farm was aggrieved by what was happening. You see? And the situation was not being resolved. You see?
In summary then, in your view, did you receive the support from the minister that you expected as DG?
No, I didn't.
And was there any act on behalf of the minister that served, in your view at least, to undermine the relationship between yourself and the minister?
One, the direct instructions into the department bypassing me is one clear example. I think somewhere in my report,
When you say report, you mean your statement, your affidavit?
I was just trying to be careful as to look at whether I deal with it. There is a point in time when people were reshuffled out of the department into the minister. Ngosi is one example. When he came back from Ethiopia, he was working under Ambassador Sheikh, right? Now, protocol regulations states very clear, if Njenje wants somebody from the Secret Service, it has to be mutually agreed and it has to be authorized by the DG. And of course, the minister would be notified about the changes. Now, in the case of Zomo, that never happened. I heard on the grapevine, no, I happened to have gone to the ministry, and Zomo was in the ministry. And then I remember asking Mukuti, oh, what is it? He says, no, DG, I've been transferred. That was Zomo. I think Kau Mabung, Dr. Kau, that I mentioned earlier on, he was also from the foreign branch. And he was taken out of the foreign branch without any consultations. One, with Mosheikh as the head of the branch. Two, with the DG. Was in the ministry. So that is Another clear example,
All right.
Advocate.
Let's move on, if we may. You decided then to terminate the relationship, is that correct?
Well, I was not terminating the relationships with him. I was resigning from the organization.
Right.
We'll have
And
to
I'm talking
make
about
it-
the employment relationship. You
You know, the
decided to resign. Right.
You see, there is another dichotomy within the structure that might perhaps be also relevant to the commission. Who appoints DGs? The president. Who dismisses, who terminates a contract of the DG? In many cases, you will not see the signature of the president. You will see a letter signed by a minister. It's not only in the intelligence, also in the other structures. And it's not only under former President Zuma. That has been the trend in the end. You never know actually what's the actual protocol. And I know even up till today, that thing is still an issue amongst former DGs. Still an issue because it has never been resolved.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that that particular topic should take us much longer. The fact is that the relationship broke down. You've given some of the reasons for the relationship breaking down, including the undermining of your position by the minister, and ultimately your decision to resign, which you've described as a constructive dismissal. You said your employment had become intolerable. Right. With that, DC Chair, can we go to paragraph 74?
Paragraph?
74 on page
yes,
17.
we can, but before we do so, let me ask this question. And I think we may have touched upon it, but I want to be quite clear what your evidence is about. You said that after the two meetings, one with the minister, the other with the president, the investigation was not pursued further. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Who made the decision that it should not be pursued further?
You know, to be honestly answering that question, Chair, it never came from me.
Yes.
I am not even sure if, I don't know if Njenje knows.
Well, you were the DG. You should know. Njenje was the head of the branch that was investigating.
Yes.
He should know. But the reason why you should know is I think it was such an important investigation. You would have wanted to know where's the outcome or anything like that.
I can unequivocally say I never gave the instruction for that investigation to stop.
Yes.
I never.
You never.
No.
Do you know whether anybody took the decision to stop it or whether it just fizzled out?
I really do not know,
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
I really do not know.
Yes.
I cannot even say it fizzled out.
Yes.
I do not know.
Yes. But after the two meetings, did the three of you talk about whether the investigation would be pursued or not? Because the minister, you did say, it was clear that the minister was opposed to the investigation being pursued. The president didn't say anything, according to you, to indicate that he did not want the investigation to be pursued. After the meeting, or at some stage after those events, did the three of you have a discussion to say, do we pursue the investigation or do we not pursue it?
No, there was no discussion around that.
Yes.
No.
Okay, all right. Now, Mr. Pretorius, I don't know whether you have had, you have refreshed your memory from Mr. Sheikh's statement and evidence and Mr. Njenje's one. I seem to have the impression that one or both of them, that what they said in terms of their understanding of where the president stood on whether the investigation should or should not continue, I seem to have the impression that their evidence either was that their impression was that the president did not want the investigation to be pursued, or that he did not want it to be pursued. But I seem to think that at least one of them said he did not say it must be stopped, or both might have said, yes, he did not say it must be stopped. But what's your recollection?
The evidence was to the effect that, and it was consistent, that no direct instruction to stop the investigation was given, but they were left under the clear impression that the former president did not favor the investigation.
Okay.
I would like to qualify an answer that the witness gave, Chair. You said that the former president said nothing in the meeting with you in relation to the Gupta investigation to indicate that he did not want the investigation to continue. Do you recall that? He did, however, on your evidence, expressly defend his relationship with the Guptas. Is that correct? I think we've dealt with that. So subject to that, nothing else was said.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Secondly, the timeline might be significant in assessing what happened here or what didn't happen. The meetings with the minister and the former president, when did they take place? Can you recall? 2011, I think you said.
The year 2011, no doubt about it. What would be extremely difficult for me is to pin down the actual month and
Yes,
date.
okay.
But
Okay.
I seem to think it would have been June, July.
Somewhere mid-year.
Sorry?
Somewhere mid-year.
Yes, somewhere mid-year.
Okay.
Because number one, it was not a hot day, it was not a warm day in Cape Town, it was cold.
Yes, okay.
All right, so if it was around mid-2011, there was a lapse of 6 or so months getting instructions. Yes, Mr. Sheikh's evidence was it was in the later months of 2011.
Later month.
Does that help you at all?
Couldn't have been, okay, depending again, latter month of 2011. What does that mean?
In any event, I don't want to quibble with
No, I'm saying because the advocate Njenje left in October 2011.
Yes.
And Njenje was part of that meeting. Yes. So I will argue that it was before October 2011.
But I think the point here is that the time lapse between those meetings and the departure of the first and later the other of the top three, yourself and Njenje and Sheikh, was a matter of months. In other words, in assessing the continuation of the investigation, all I want to establish is that the time lapse, and we can discuss this later, but the time lapse between the meetings with the minister and the former president and the departure from the organization, state security organization, was a matter of months.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. In your hands, Chair, but barring any other questions.
No, I don't have other questions, but I do know that you do have that topic of politicization of state security. It may or may not be that it can come after the one on page 17. I'll leave that to you.
Well, no. The Chair, the memorandum addressed to the top 6 is the next.
That's
in
fine,
the
yeah.
sequence of events. That must be dealt with.
That's fine.
And after the statement is concluded, we can then deal with the responses of the top 6. But there's also the heading, the matter involving General Mdluli, and then there's also the PAN 1 investigation to be dealt with. So those 3 issues need to be dealt with before dealing with the responses. Okay? And we can deal with it briefly because we will deal with it in more detail when we deal with the statement of Duarte, Ms. Duarte.
Yes.
But, and there has been evidence, quite a detailed nature in this regard. But in summary, on the 18th of March 2016, certainly that's the date of the memorandum addressed to the top 6 of the African National Congress. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That memorandum is attached, and the purpose of that memorandum and the approach to the top 6 was what, in your view, in summary?
The purpose of that memorandum was to bring to the attention of the ANC as an organization by former members of Umkhonto weSizwe. We were concerned about developments, one in the country, but also we were concerned about developments within the party. Remember now, this is 2016, we are no more civil servants. We then felt that a memorandum was drafted, and by 101 members of the structure. Okay, not that, I'll come to who drafted it. Right? Now, on behalf of the 101 members, generated was this memorandum that is attached as what?
MM3 on page 115, but there are extracts in paragraph 77, so we needn't go to the memorandum.
Okay. The memorandum states, or you say I might jump to 77?
Yes.
Yes, the memorandum states, amongst other things, that in light of these revelations, that is around the Guptas now, that's paragraph 8 of that memorandum. In light of these revelations, we demand to know what role, if any, the Gupta family play in influencing the appointment of ministers, and to what end? Which other ministers have been approached by them in this manner? What private arrangements, if any, have been made with the Gupta family? What is their role in the appointment of board members of state-owned enterprises? Is the leadership of the ANC aware of these arrangements? And on whose authority That's the Gupta Family Act.
The further questions raised in paragraph 9 and 10.
In the absence of any coherent explanation of all of the above, we are forced to speculate that important decisions of state are subject to outside influence and unilateralism without any regard to the well-being of the country or our people.
Paragraph 13.
Paragraph 13 reads, whilst the challenges that face the ANC are many and complex, we are most concerned about the increasing tendency of state capture. We can no longer remain silent in the face of this most undemocratic and dangerous development.
And paragraph 14.
There are many accounts of undue influence on the decisions of the state. We need to establish the veracity and the validity of all these claims.
Now, at this stage, the evidence in the public domain, particularly in the media, around these issues, what was the position?
Well, the media had a field around these issues, there is no doubt about it.
Right.
This was not any secret information that we got. We didn't have any access to secret information of state. It was in the public domain.
Right. And paragraph 16 is a call on the leadership of the ANC to establish an independent commission of inquiry. Now, this call is made in March 2016, and we'll come to the timeline when we deal with the affidavit of Ms. Duarte in due course as to whether this was acted upon, and let me not pass any judgment at this stage, but to ask you whether, in your view, this approach to the leadership was acted on sufficiently or promptly enough.
I can safely say no.
Why do you say
it was not? Why I'm saying this? First, let me also indicate that in that meeting, what is not captured here, in that meeting, I must say it was a very friendly meeting from a number of the top 6 members, but one, the then Secretary General of the ANC, Mantashe, he was arrogant. I remember there was an alteration in that meeting between him and Jabu Muleketi. And this alteration comes about, he tried to politicize us. And Jabu said to him, please, don't preach Catholicism to the Pope. Temperatures rose. The person who saved that day was Jesse Duarte, who called calm and said, comrades, this is not what we came here for. There is a memorandum that should be discussed, and these comrades are expecting responses from us. And I must say, after that, then there was calm. That is one. I think it is important, because we'll come to that
yes.
later.
Yes. And we'll come to the sequence of events between March and the end of 2016 and in 2017. But let's not forestall that at the moment.
Okay.
Let's deal with the issue in paragraph 79 and following, if we may, Ambassador. Again, apologies, Chair, we're going out of time sequence. But during your stint with the with the intelligence structures, SSA, did you have occasion to deal with a report commissioned by General Mdluli. Tell the chair what happened.
Yes, I had. And also, let me say that, again, thanks to Ambassador Sheikh's memory. By the way, he is the youngest within the three of us, so his memory is still sharp. Yes, I interacted with this, and I recalled, and he didn't actually give that background, that this report from crime intelligence, what is called the Mdluli report, was given to me by Minister Cwele. To say there is a report here that is very worrisome. And I want you guys to look at this report.
Just very briefly, what did the report say? You say it was a report prepared by crime intelligence.
To be exact now, can you refer me to the...
Paragraph 79.
Paragraph 79.
Yeah.
Okay, let me read it.
Please do.
Minister Cwele provided me with a report commissioned by General Mdluli and prepared by crime intelligence, averring that there was a conspiracy waged by senior generals in SABC to secure the removal from crime intelligence.
The removal of General Mdluli.
Oh, his removal.
His removal from crime intelligence, which he indicated the former president wished the SSA to analyze and report on.
Now, we discussed in consultation more or less when this occurred. Do you recall?
I really do not recall. As I said in my introduction, I had completely forgotten about this report.
But it was whilst you were still DG.
No, it was whilst I'm in the SSA.
Yes.
And as I said, most of these things happened during 2011, early 2011.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, should a crime report of this nature have been given to you directly?
Now, again, in the spirit of that coordination, here is crime intelligence having a report, let alone the report. Another thing which I've never discussed with you. This report alleges that there were generals who wanted to remove me as Mdluli. That was one of the things that we said, no, there's something wrong with this report. But as to whether the SSA would have been the correct structure, it's questionable to me.
All right.
Because
Let's leave that protocol aside, if we may. You do state in paragraph 80,
okay,
as a result of that intervention, did you investigate?
Yes, we analyzed the report.
What was your finding?
Our finding was that there is no substance in these allegations. There is just no substance. Number one, I remember we raised the issue of the process that this report should be taken by the very person who's being accused. At least he should have had the wisdom to have left that report to be done by one of his deputies, because he is implicated. Now, how could we believe that the truthfulness of his report, that was amongst the but our conclusion, and again, let me state, it was done predominantly by the domestic branch, because it's a domestic issue. It falls within, you see, and then they advised me then By me, I mean the three of us on this report. And we dismissed the report as having no basis.
So just to summarize, General Mdluli, to your knowledge, commissioned a report to be produced by Crime Intelligence. The substance of that report was that he, General Mdluli, was the victim of a conspiracy waged by senior generals in the South African Police Service to secure his removal from Crime Intelligence.
Yes.
That report was then given to you for investigation.
Yes.
Or to the SSA for investigation.
Yes.
It was investigated by Mr. Njenje, who
Yes,
found that there was no substance to the allegations. Do I understand you correctly?
Correct, Advocate.
What happened then?
I'm sorry, would there have been a document reflecting your analysis of
Yes.
the report
Yes.
and your conclusions and reasons?
No,
for your
that one would have been a formal document
Yes.
that
yes.
was responding to a formal document
Yes.
that came through the minister.
Okay, and that should exist somewhere.
No, it should
I have a
exist.
note, Chair, to try and obtain it.
Okay, okay. But if you are able to, I would like you to just highlight 2 or 3 things on the basis of which it was said this report had no merit, if you are able to remember. But if you are if
You
are
will
not
pardon
able
me
to,
again there,
Yeah.
loss of memory.
No,
And
that's
also,
fine.
it
I'm
looks
sure we-
like the person who still remembers these details of that report.
No, that's all right.
Yes, but me, no.
Hopefully
I'm
we'll
sorry,
get
Chair.
the report. Okay, you may proceed. I think Mr. Pretoria's question was what happened after you had concluded that there was no merit in the Mdluli report. He was expecting you to answer that question. What happened after you had concluded? Yeah.
When we finished, when I received the report from domestic, we discussed it as the top 3, and it was cleared, and it was given back to the minister as our response.
Do you know whether it was given to the former president?
I don't know. That would have been the minister who would have done that,
But
normally.
Just have a look at your own statement in paragraph 81, please. Again, if you disagree with what is said here, please say that to the chair.
This would have been twofold. One, it's possible that I would have been briefed by the minister on this response, because personally I don't remember dealing with the president
Yes.
on this.
No, you don't say that, Chair. What you do say is that your report was not accepted by the former president.
I can.
Please look at paragraph 81 and just tell me, sorry, don't tell me, tell the chair whether what you say there is accurate or not.
Well, you may read it aloud
But
first and
be
then
it
comment.
as it may, I nevertheless referred the report to Mr. Njenje for the domestic branch to investigate. This was done, and when completed, the domestic branch found that the report had no substance and was full of unverified information. However, our SSA report, that is the response, despite careful analysis, was not accepted by the former president, who chose rather to believe the commissioned report by Richard Mdluli. This had the effect of stifling the murder, rape, and kidnapping investigations against Mdluli, as well as the investigation into his involvement in the irregular appointment of members to crime intelligence and his abuse of Secret Service accounts, vehicles, and safe houses for his own purposes. Now, that latter part, I suspect, must have been the content of that report that they were analyzing. But going back to your question about not accepted by the former president, I cannot really say with absolute surety that it is a correct reflection. I cannot, because I never communicated with the president on that. I don't know if he communicated with Njenje, which is also possible.
Right. Well, it may not necessarily flow from your evidence, but the fate of the charges or investigation into General Mdluli and its partial finalization more recently, approximately 10 years later, is a matter of other evidence, and we needn't deal with it here. But it doesn't seem to me that you have personal knowledge of these.
No.
Then if there may have been an error in signing the affidavit which says this when actually that's not your recollection, it may be necessary to do a supplementary affidavit explaining that it's not like this.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
There are a few corrections that must be made.
Okay.
Let's deal with the PAN 1 investigation. This you do have personal knowledge of, is that correct?
Yes, Chair. I mean,
Sorry, I need to put something to...
Yes, okay.
Do you recall, I must put to you, for your own evidence, Ambassador, Mr. Sheikh gave evidence as to the meeting with the President, right?
yes.
He said the President welcomed us, we were all seated. I did get a sense that he was briefed about why we were there, confirmed that. And obviously he knew that it was about the matter of the Gupta investigation. That coincides with your evidence. He then goes on to say, but the President started off with a discussion on essentially what is called the, I got to get this pronunciation right, the Richard Mdluli report. Do you recall that being discussed at the meeting with the President?
That statement is correct, because that is what Sheikh said in his evidence.
No, the question is, do you recall?
I don't recall that, to be honest. I don't recall that having been raised in that meeting. But I recall how that report was brought to our attention. I don't recall it really.
Yes. No, it's only fair that we speak to you once more and get an accurate version of your evidence in this regard. Because I understand that you don't recall this and you have no personal knowledge of what is stated here. Is that correct?
No. What I'm saying, I don't have the place where it was raised. I don't recall it being raised in that meeting with the President.
No. Leave aside what you've said, that you don't recall it being said at that meeting. We've established that. But what you say here is that the report that the SSA prepared under the hands of Mr. Njenje was not accepted by the former president, right, who chose rather to believe that report commissioned by Richard Mdluli. Now, as I understand what you're saying now, you have no direct knowledge of that.
Yes.
Is that correct?
No, that's correct.
Well, we must qualify your statement. If we can go on to the PAN 1 investigation. The time that you spent at SSA, and you've told the chair this, prior to your arrival, the investigation into PAN 1, the PAN 1 project, was ongoing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But the incidents that gave rise to the report had already occurred before you arrived.
That's correct.
Do I understand your evidence correctly?
Yeah.
Right. What was the position when you arrived then, in relation to the expenditure, the report, and related matters?
The position of the recipients of the report, who was the minister, because the investigation team was reporting in meetings that were chaired by the minister. And I have again to state here that with all the differences that I had with him, when it came to this PAN 1 report, there were no contradictions, there were no problems, there were no challenges amongst us. We were listening to the investigators. Well, I had the privilege of being sensitized and briefed by Njenje whenever there's going to be a meeting with the minister, with the investigation team. But there were no differences, there were no contradictions amongst us on PAN in particular.
Right. PAN is the principal agent network. And you'll speak about that in a moment. But just briefly, if you could summarize the contents of this report. What allegations were contained in the report? What information found its way into the report?
I'm sorry, Mr. Pretorius. You're now referring to a report or the report. Which report are you referring to?
Well, perhaps it's better phrased as the information that ultimately found its way into the report. Let's take it step by step.
Into a report about PAN 1?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's colloquially referred to as the PAN 1 investigation and the PAN 1 report. But let's not get too far ahead, and that's my fault. I apologize. In paragraph 82, you say you participated in briefings that took place at the ministry about the project, the PAN 1 project, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Njenje was also present at the meetings. I would understand that because he was head of the domestic branch of intelligence, he would have been dealing with it more directly.
Correct.
Right. What sort of information was discussed at these briefings?
The investigation team, which was a big team, also represented by the legal division of the SSA. The issues was a project by the SSA under the direction of Arthur Fraser, who was the Deputy Director General in charge of operations. This principal network, this principal agent network project. Number one, it is important for me, I think you will agree, to state that it was a properly constituted and developed project in that, one, it was authorized by then Minister Ronnie Kasrils. That's number one. And number two, it was then rolled out. It is a covert operation which normally intelligence organizations would have. I want to be very clear on that. There was nothing illegal about the setting up of that project.
The concept was a legitimate concept.
It was a legitimate concept.
Yes.
But the problem, what went wrong? There was no command and control. There was no oversight. Command and control, number one, from the DG, who was then Manala Manzini. Right? Because Arthur Fraser reported to him. This is very important. As Njenje was reporting to me, Njenje would never have ran a project like this without reporting to me. He might not have been given me day-to-day, minute-to-minute activity, but I would have an interest as an accounting officer. That is why I'm saying where it went wrong, there was no control, number one. And I think it was just left to us. Right?
Was there anything wrong with its objectives?
I would say there would have been nothing wrong with its objectives.
Yes. Was there anything wrong with the manner in which it carried out its functions?
That's where the problem was. Problem number one in relation to that question was one of the problems with that project. Number one was that project was not linked to headquarters. The secure communication systems that receive reports from their various agents was not going to headquarters. The database, the engine room for that system was housed where? In Arthur Fraser's house.
Sorry, perhaps in order to understand the significance of that point, it's necessary to explain. Reports from operatives in any project of the SSA, where do they go?
Reports would go to operational units through secure communication, the nerve center of which is located at the farm. And the reasons for those are multifaceted. But the most important one is the security of that infrastructure.
Now, is that a necessary part of the operations of the State Security Agency?
Absolutely, very necessary and critical. And any violation of that would border around violation, serious violation of security protocols.
Right. Now, was that process followed in relation to PAN 1 according to the information that you were learning? According to the information you were getting in this process?
In these briefings, and according to the information as reported by the investigators, What was the question? Sorry, I lost track now.
You've described a process to the chair
Yes.
of reports from operatives in a project that go through a certain process and are centralized
Yes.
within the SSA
Right.
records.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Now the question is, was that process followed
No, it was not.
according to the information you received in relation to PAN 1?
No, it was not.
What was the
Because,
process?
number one, the nerve center that receives that information was not linked to SSA headquarters.
Yes. Where was it located?
It was located at Arthur Fraser's house.
What did this mean for the security of your information?
Wow, it's serious. Not only for the security of the information, but also for the security of those people who give you that information. Because sources, your assets in intelligence are very critical. You can never compromise because remember, they are recruited on the basis of trust. Now, when they are not going to know, or when they get to know that actually these reports that I'm sending are not going to where I think they were getting to, and there's a problem there. There's a problem there. In other countries, it can go to treason, can be charged for treason for that.
Let's go to paragraph 86.3. What was a further
86.3.
point
Yes.
in relation
There
to
were
the
no
information?
reporting lines to head office, which gave Mr. Fraser a dangerous amount of unbridled power.
86.4.
There was no oversight or accountability for the projects pursued or expenditure incurred. Can we just?
No, I'm listening.
I just wanted to expand a little bit on the
Please do.
expenditure incurred. The estimate for the mess that happened out of that, I think if I'm still correct, and Jen mentioned it, I think it ran to about 4 billion or more. And how did it happen? The number of houses, safe houses that were bought, and Jenje gave account of the number of cars that were bought, which ran in their hundreds. Some of them were never used. Now, all these things come out as a result of the investigation. But I can safely say, Chair, one of the most beautiful things what the investigators did was to secure the database. The target was get that database out of that house.
Out of Fraser's house.
By hook or crook. Because nonetheless, it's not his. Get it out by hook or crook. And they did get it. Now, that is how the beans were spilled. Because now the clever guys would be were in a position now to download, to analyze. Then it was discovered that, wow, there's a big, big problem that the agency was not aware of.
Right. What happened in relation, perhaps before I ask you that question, in paragraph 87 you summarize what you refer to as the three main problems with the PAN 1 project.
The three main problems with the PAN project, as I recall, were, in my view, therefore, the centralization of power, the ability to draw large amounts of money, and the absence of accountability. Centralization of power Arthur Fraser, in regard to this project, behaved and acted like he's the DG. That is one. And because there was no accountability, there was no control by the DG, it became a free-for-all. He was a law unto himself. And I think there was a consensus amongst the recipients when the investigators raised these issues, because questions would be asked. The lawyers would respond, now in terms of the act, that was irregular, that was illegal, it was not supposed to have happened, but it happened. That was the reality of the matter.
What happened to the investigation? It seems apparent from your statement in paragraph 88 that at a stage all expenditure relating to all Pan 1 projects was stopped. Is that correct?
What happened when this thing was leaked? I don't know how it was leaked, this project. And then when investigators, remember this is the time I'm still not there when this project started. I'm still not even there when the project was stopped. But what I recall was, when the project was stopped, it was when it was realized that damage has been done. The minister instructed that the project immediately stop. Now, I have to say, under those conditions, the minister would have been justified because his department is not accountable to anybody. Under those conditions, the minister, it would have been a legit, because he's the only one then in that case, because the DG, would he have done that when he was not adjudicating, monitoring the implementation of the project? The answer is no. Well, so in that case, it was genuine that the minister should come in. I agree fully with Twele on that decision.
The investigation or the fruits of the investigation, were they referred to any law enforcement agency?
Ultimately, the investigation was completed. And this would have been now 2011, one before Njenje resigned. What was the question, Advocate?
Well, let's take it step by step. Was the investigation completed?
Yes, thanks.
Was it then referred?
It was completed, it was winded up at the level of the minister and his senior management in concurrence with the investigators. The recommendations of the no, let me not go further with that.
Well, go to paragraph 90 and tell the chair what happened.
In fact, Minister Kwele had himself taken the view that the investigators and the legal team, headed by Mr. Advocate Velemana Kom, had exhausted all avenues of investigation, and that it was now up to the law enforcement agencies to act against those implicated.
Therein lies the question that I wanted to ask. The matter was then referred to the law enforcement agencies.
That was the recommendation now of the collective as headed by the minister. It's also important, Advocate, to indicate that when we talk of exhausting all internal processes, remember, our investigators, in terms of their mandate, they can only investigate matters within the organization. If those matters then have got implications of criminality and what have you, then it goes to the law enforcement agencies.
Yeah.
And this is what this paragraph is explaining.
Yes, well, in paragraph 89, in the last sentence, you say the matter was then referred by Mr. Njenje to Peter Bishop at the Special Investigating Unit.
Yes. Mr. Njenje then, as the custodian of that investigation, had to be the one who now finalized that handover of the dossier to the law enforcement agencies.
Right. Two things then happened, and we can refer here to your understanding of Mr. Njenje's evidence. You deal with in paragraph 90. What did you learn?
I was unaware until I heard Mr. Njenje's evidence before the commission that after my departure from the SSA, he was instructed by Minister Cwele to withdraw the Pen 1 report from SSA and was given an instruction to stop the Pen 1 investigation. Let me just correct here again. I was unaware until I heard Mr. Njenje's evidence before the commission. That is correct. What the issue is here. And that after my departure from the SSA, which is again also wrong.
Because he left before you.
He left before me.
Yes.
He left before me. He was instructed by Minister Cwele. Now, I suspect the correct version here would have been he was instructed by Mr. Cwele to withdraw that report from the law enforcement agencies whilst we were still there. But I was never informed. I was never informed. As I say, I first heard about that in his evidence this year.
Yes. So what you were unaware of was that he was instructed to withdraw the report from the law enforcement
because he never reported to me about that.
So SSA should read SIU.
He was instructed to withdraw the Pen 1 report from the SIU. You're correct there. Again.
Yes, in any event, what we know think that there are matters that concern
Yeah.
the ambassador.
Yes.
Her view of what transpired, and
Yes.
who was right or wrong,
Yeah.
is really a matter between the Commission and her.
Yes. Is there something we
Only part of the lights, I'm told, Chair, so it is important that we have a record, particularly of the procedural steps that we take to accommodate the versions of the implicated parties.
Yeah.
I know that we should be able to finish within an hour, and we can arrange another time.
Yes.
I've canvassed this possibility with the ambassador, who says provided it's before the middle of August, he's quite willing to come.
Yes. It's
And
just
by then hand up a correct letter.
it's just a pity that when we have gone as far as we had to try and finish, and then we can't finish.
It's a great pity that we have to say.
Well, Ambassador, you saw what happened. We were all trying to finish, obviously with your cooperation, to finish today or this evening. I think that what should be done, Mr. Pretorius, I think what should be done is one of two things. Well, one, we are going to have to adjourn. But the one option is, of course, that the ambassador can be called back on a date to be arranged to finish. But also, it may well be that if what he has not covered, what was left is very limited. My own thinking is it could be covered by way of an affidavit. So he could be asked to deal with ABCD issues in an affidavit, and he responds in an affidavit. And then next time, or at a certain stage, somebody can go on record to say, on this day, the electricity forced us to stop before he could finish, and to complete his evidence, this is what is happening. If it's an affidavit, it can be said that here's an affidavit that covers what he did not cover, and it will be marked exactly whatever.
We could deal with the response to the top 6 affidavits in that way.
Yes.
I'm also told, although I'm very reluctant to hear what was told to me, that the venue is available tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow in the morning I have a teleconference commitment.
Then that's the fly, so I'm relieved to hear it.
He has to fly tomorrow. Sunday. What could be explored maybe either tomorrow afternoon. I'm not sure whether we should just leave it to one of those two options, I'm not sure. But as tomorrow afternoon could be explored, I'm not sure.
You know, Chair, if I may say, we have to correct this affidavit in many parts. As I understand the Ambassador's response to the affidavit, he doesn't really take issue with it. It's contained in those. Any observations that might concern your findings ultimately, Chair, are observations that arise out of that response which don't really concern the factual evidence. They are an independent record in relation to which the Ambassador has no quarrel. So it would be a fairly straightforward exercise to place the Ambassador's response. What is important, though, is that that response finds its way onto a record of sorts, and we have to find some way of doing it so that those affidavits are heard. They don't wish to put a version, they don't wish to cross-examine, they merely wish to respond. And then any consideration of dealing with the issues raised there can be dealt with directly with those persons, if necessary, by way of affidavit or evidence. So it doesn't seem to me to be too much of a challenge to keep the evidence in writing. In fact, we finished the statement apart from 1 or 2 paragraphs. So it's only that that needs to be dealt with as a corrected affidavit.
No, I think you are right. Probably, I think what we should do is you will reflect on possibly going that route by way of an affidavit. That seems to both of us to be the right way to go now. That's one. Two, I think that because we are not being recorded now, when next the commission is sitting, before the next witness starts, I think you should be there so that we can just place on the record the way forward.
That's on Monday morning.
On Monday we were meant to hear the evidence of a certain witness, and Tuesday I've been told that that witness is not going to be able to come. So it's either going to be Wednesday or Thursday. Ms. Hofmeyer, we know you can be in touch.
I'll be here. It will be a short.
It would be 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So we can start. You can be here when we start at 10 or whatever time.
Thank you.
So, but for also the media, if they are still here, there will be no hearing on Monday and Tuesday because the witness who was going to come, I've been told, he is not able to come. And so we may be sitting on Wednesday, but if that doesn't happen, we certainly will be sitting on Thursday. So the media and the public will be informed about Wednesday once there is certainty. Okay, I think that it remains for me to once again thank you, Ambassador, for making yourself available to come and assist this commission. We appreciate it very much. I'm sorry that we couldn't wrap up your evidence the way we had hoped to, but a way will be found to wrap it up, if possible, without you having to travel there. But Mr. Victorious will reflect on the way to do it. But we appreciate it very much that you took the trouble you came. I'm sorry we don't get to sit so late, but I'm hoping that we will still have more past and present directors general and ministers and deputy ministers come forward and share with the commission what they do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we are therefore going to adjourn. I think we have never sat till so late. We adjourn.
All rise.
So,